Everyone, welcome back to the Social Media News Roundup. Whether you're joining us live or on replay, we truly appreciate your support. And joining me for more reviews, rants and raves about your favorite platforms is my co-host, Natalie Eminae from Okoko Media. So, Natalie, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back.
You're very, very welcome. Couldn't do it without you. It's much more fun in your company. Now, we have a lot to go through. Now, if you're new to the Social Media News Roundup, we typically have two big segments that we go through so we can give you updates and advice on how to maybe slightly adjust and fine-tune your social media activities to get more results. So the first segment typically is I ask Natalie for a quick tour of the different platforms and some of the most recent developments that may have a bearing on our work. And we tend to focus on updates that have an impact on content creation or engagement with our audience, but also sometime now we also talk about engagement with our own employees as part of social media. So that's quite important. So just give us a quick breakdown of which platforms are we going to be looking at today.
Yes, thanks, Pascal. So the really fun bit is we get to go and do a little bit of a deep dive on networks that have a lot going on, and our running order today is going to be a nice overview of Twitter and what they're doing differently to make it slightly easier for us all to communicate, then jumping into Facebook with a tour of the Facebook family, who have some really exciting e-commerce opportunities and a couple of other little development tidbits in the bag. So that's a really nice one. And wrapping up with a little roundup of LinkedIn that has, again, a couple of new features in the works, with a brief overview of what I'm going to refer to generously as the best of the rest, just to look at anyone else who's got anything ticking over in the background. So this might be a slightly more obscure platforms that may be niche, but may have huge potential for your business right now.
Okay, so just to recap, we're going to begin with Twitter. Then you're going to move on to the Facebook ecosystem.
Yes.
Then LinkedIn, then some other brands that are worth mentioning. So that's the first segment. The second segment that we go through then, it would be our recommendation, our suggestions for a bit of homework, a bit of research, things that can really help out. So I'm going to ask Natalie for her strategy of the month to try out to see if that can improve the results. I'm going to ask you about the social media app of the month. I will share my content creation tool of the month as well to kind of give it something. But also I want to add what I call the article of the month. So something that I've spotted that it creates some interesting debate and reaction. And this month, just for you, it's the index from Sprout Social. So every year, as you may know, they do a big B2C survey and ask questions, how can we do things better? So that would be the second segment, kind of reflections and recommendations. And then because we are now today live with an audience, we'll also take some questions as maybe a third segment, you could call that. Right, before we move on to the tour of the platforms and the changes, I want to check something with you. So the very last time we did a social media news roundup was late February, and then something happened. And we've not been in touch ever since until today. But at the time, you recommended for all of us, and I'm thinking about, people who are with us today live and on replay, you suggested that we had to think about better ways to engage and better ways to reach out to new audiences. And the better ways to engage, you told us back then, that in addition to the established way of using social media platforms, you told us about live and groups. And then for the better ways to reach out and increase your audience reach, you told us about advertising and stories. It's almost like the formula, live and groups, advertising and stories. Has anything changed the last 2-3 months in terms of this additional or more rounded way of shaping your social media activities?
Overall, I'm pleased to say those are still the magic elements. We have just seen, as the tone digitally has shifted and everyone's sort of gone into the new way of working and living, we have seen an adaptation of those tools for them to be used effectively. And the harsh reality for a lot of businesses is, if you're still doing the same things you were doing sort of pre-lockdown, you're probably not getting the results that you were back then. For the businesses that have evolved and tried new things through these mechanisms, but by using them in a slightly different way, we have seen phenomenal results. So if we look at groups specifically, when we spoke in February about that, our main concern for groups and this private messaging within a public social platform sphere was all around communities and building customer tribes, so building a loyal customer base. If we look at the businesses that have done this well over the last 10 weeks, there's also been an element of engaging with staff, so managing staff and having a private space for staff to hang out and still have those conversations, and also within colleagues that may work in other businesses but would be colleagues within the same networks, actually having these little groups and sort of micro groups, keeping each other going, sharing the positivity, maximizing opportunities. By building these little sets of people, we've also seen a bit of opportunity in helping each other out. And in tough business times like this, we've got to work to help with one another. So whether that's if you have a core network and you want to set up a little group for them, and then if you share an article on LinkedIn that you could really do with a bit of extra visibility for, saying, hey guys, would you mind? So this conversation, the would you mind conversation, goes privately into a group, and then they can help you out in the public sphere. We are seeing more of these subsets of communication. So if they can be used like that, it's very, very effective. With live, we've seen lots of opportunity around people actually just being able to broadcast, and as things change rapidly, so whether that's you're an accountant firm and you're actually giving a little bit of commentary on new government options or opportunities as they come out, can you do a very, very quick live just to share that information with people, share that expertise? So yep, live still rocking it. Advertising, if you have basically any product or service throughout lockdown, there will still be some people and businesses that have needed your product or service, no matter how niche or how adjusted that audience may be. So if, for example, you were a food wholesaler and you supplied to restaurants previously, all of the restaurants are closed. We've seen quite a few examples of this where kind of suppliers have then pivoted and offered retail delivery to retail customers. So no matter how obscure your product or service are, there is still some sort of demand. The easiest way to feed that demand and make sure you're getting to customers who are active in the market that need what you're offering without potentially upsetting anyone who doesn't need that is through advertising via social. It lets you tap into behaviors and core interests and demographics, so you essentially profile who you're selling to right now, and for anyone who isn't in the market to buy, you can essentially shift that message away from your public social media platforms, giving you a little bit more scope to comment and focus on your community building, your humanity, and particularly bringing you flawlessly back round to have you got story opportunity to actually be sharing slightly more disposable messaging, but it's heart very, very human, because the thing that's bonding us all together right now is this sense of we are humans, we work together, and we're going to help each other out. So absolutely, the way in which we can use all those things successfully has shifted, but they are still fundamentally the key elements that we need to be getting right for a successful social media strategy.
Thank you very much. So let's continue to explore the options. I mean, when we do the social media news roundup, everybody, we don't give you instructions. We give you suggestions. We don't know the business that you're running off. We don't know your strategy. We can only kind of suggest to you that at this moment in time, it seems to support your desire to reach the right audience, to engage the audience in a way that shows your qualities as people as well as businesses. And therefore, this formula of live and stories, in addition to what you do currently, advertising and advertising stories on one hand for reach, live and groups for interaction is important. Okay, let's begin then with the tour of the platforms with Twitter, which is what you wanted to do.
Yes, so Twitter's one of my favorites, but it has had a little bit of a tough ride over the last years and months. It hasn't been one to evolve as rapidly as the networks, and it stayed a little bit truer to its core, which makes me love it more, but actually means from a business point of view, there isn't quite as much that we can do on that. Now, over the last couple of days, we have seen added Twitter functionality being tested around direct messaging. So this is the idea that private messaging going on between your individual Twitter profile or business Twitter profile and someone on the other end of this. So whether this is additional support that you can give to customers, and certainly is a trend that we're seeing with the businesses that we work with, is that their customers right now might have slightly more questions than normal. If you think about ordering anything online, for anyone who's kind of like an e-commerce retailer as an example, you might have some added questions as to is dispatch time affected? Is it going to be slightly slower to get to me? You might have some added product questions. If you think about B2B capacity, those of us that are refitting office spaces, we might have to be buying products and services that we actually haven't had to buy before. I know from my own personal experience, we ordered some screens last week for the office. I was so out of my depth with ordering screens. It's not something that never come up, and I had a million office screen questions. So it's just another way of actually getting that customer dialogue. So we're seeing Twitter try and shift direct messaging on the platform, which had a bit of a bad rap, because about 5 or 6 years ago, and I'm sure you'll remember this vividly, Pascal, auto DMs were the scourge of the Twitter community. So you could essentially set up direct messages to go out to anyone who followed you, and you got the worst spam through auto DMs, to the point where a lot of people would stop checking their direct messages, and it just became this space that wasn't actually used for communication. It was almost like a spam folder. If you went in and had a little glance through, it was very hard sell from businesses that you didn't actually need anything from. So we're seeing Twitter respond to the shift that we have basically seen Facebook and WhatsApp lead all around brand dialogue and putting brands in constant communication with their customers. It's almost like the WeChat model, which is what we see in China, which is more of a social presence where brands and customers will almost be in a constant private dialogue. So if the brand has news, that gets basically sent via DM through WeChat to a customer, and we see a high level of engagement that way. So we're seeing Twitter sort of toy with this. It's in development, so a couple of accounts have these new features, but they are limited at the moment, so it's still very much in beta testing. But I think we're going to see a little bit more of a DM style facility on Twitter that allows for instant messaging and far more responsiveness and insights from brands. So it's an interesting development, and will it all hopefully make us a little bit chattier on Twitter? I certainly hope so.
Well, interestingly, but thanks for that. That's something that I know I picked up. But you talk about making us a bit chattier on Twitter. But then on the other side, they are now testing a way for you to actually block replies and comments on your own tweet, which in some circles has been highly welcome, because some individuals, organizations have been targeted by just unpleasant characters, to be frank. But it's back to this idea of, which I know there's a version of that on Facebook, where you can decide who gets to see the post from just your circle of friends, friends of friends, and so on. But this one is literally testing disabling replies and comments. So say, here's the message. There's no need for you to comment. I suppose that makes me think of YouTube in that respect. So, and I think it's a mark of, I think some individuals who have essentially said, I'm trying to share a message or be helpful, and what I'm getting is just not what I had in mind. So yeah, testing this kind of moderation has been interesting. Yeah, I mean, Twitter is an incredible brand because it stays, it's valiant, and it's working, and it's present in people's mind. But we're still, I think, to get real value from it, if I may be frank. So I'm loyal to the brand, but I'm still, I think I'm loyal to the brand, and I'm almost disregarding the fact that for now, I'm not getting high value. Now, for those of you who are with us today, would you mind actually in the chat box putting which social media platforms you are currently using? And by the way, if you're a fan of Twitter, let us know as well. That'd be very, very good. But moving on from Twitter then to Facebook and its ecosystem. So what's been happening at the Facebook headquarters the last couple of months?
Well, as much as there's been no one at Facebook headquarters and they're all working remotely, they have loads going on. So we've seen lots of little shifts in what we would refer to as long-term Facebook projects. So they're working hard on their cryptocurrency. That was famously called Libra for quite a few years and months. That's switched its name to Novi to try and escape some negative press concerns around Libra. So interesting to see that development, and a little bit more of a social media push towards that cryptocurrency. We'll see. It's a little bit of a, are people going to be able to buy and sell on Facebook using a Facebook currency? Jury's out right now, but we are definitely seeing more appetite for buying and selling on Facebook. They have offered a whole range and basically a suite of what they're referring to as content systems that are going to make it easier for small businesses to come out of lockdown. So the Facebook driver right now, and I think it's very clever, but it's based on the fact that small business and small business advertising spend is the lifeblood of Facebook. That's what makes Facebook a massively profitable network in a way that other platforms don't necessarily have that. So some social media platforms will only allow big players to spend, and although they have significant marketing budgets, really the bit that makes Facebook so powerful is small business spend from small businesses on a mass scale. So Facebook knows where its customers are coming from, and it knows how to look after them. So that's awesome to see. In terms of one of the things we've been talking about with a lot of our clients is, do we need to be on TikTok? And the answer has been, unless your customers are on it, probably not. But we can see the appeal. Facebook have launched, are in the process of rolling out, literally from the 27th, so this is sort of hot off the presses, Collab, which is a TikTok rip-off, which is a little bit...
Are you suggesting that those social media platforms copy each other?
Well... sometimes if you won't let Facebook buy you out, they will destroy you, as we saw with Instagram and Snapchat. So it's interesting to see. Facebook has put actually some better privacy settings around Collab, having learned from the TikTok issues and experience. They're also looking after their brands and businesses, which is nice to see. Again, they know where their interest is. So little things like making sure that they have better copyright systems, shutting down people that are violating that, but very much having that interactive, fun ability at its core. So whether you are a business that's slightly on the fence about TikTok, but you do well out of Facebook, you might very soon find that actually you don't need to make that choice. You will have these awesome tools at your fingertips that you can tie into your other Facebook suite presence. So we'll see. I think it might be an interesting fit. I think if they can combine that with the loyal user base of Insta, they've definitely got a winning formula. It's just whether they can beat that first in the market TikTok experience.
Just on that, before we move on to what has been a big chunk in news for the last few days, talking of Instagram, Facebook bought Giphy, the GIF making platform. I say Giphy, by the way, people say Jiffy, I don't know. But Facebook took the view that, particularly around Messenger, Instagram, and all those people would want to express feelings in particular, and moods and the likes, using those animated kind of pictures. So they bought Giphy, and they are donating it to the Instagram team, which I think is interesting to bear in mind. And again, with regard to Facebook Stories, actually Stories which are now on all the different platforms owned by Facebook, they've also launched a way, testing it for now, a way to animate still photography. So you can just take a still shot, but then create some form of animation. So there's some interesting kind of mood around moving images, and whether it's a GIF or a photo that you then use one of the features to do so. So yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love a GIF, and I'm with you. It's GIF. It's Giphy.
You tell us. Is it GIF? Is it GIF?
Any GIF supporters, let us know in the chat.
Okay. Any other news from the Facebook world?
Yeah, the huge Facebook news is that we are seeing the rollout of Facebook Shops, which is also linked heavily to Instagram Shops. So basically, both networks are getting the same platform, which allows and is a bit of a complete game changer for small businesses, because all of a sudden we are actually able to retail e-commerce on a Facebook or Instagram platform without the customer having to leave that platform. So you may have, you might have clicked an ad on Facebook or Instagram previously for a product and ended up buying that product, but the key step will have been that ad will have taken you to that retailer's website or their Shopify or some sort of e-commerce platform. We're seeing Facebook actually remove that so that businesses can list their products. Right now it's only physical products, but we are expecting a rollout for services as well. So physical products in a storefront on the platform, and your customers can buy, they can transact directly there without having to leave. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a complete game changer for a lot of small businesses, because predominantly what sets Facebook apart with this, they're very late to the e-commerce party because there's plenty of e-commerce things. It is free for small businesses. So it's free for your business to list, and it's free to retail. Now, it might not be free to transact. We're seeing a little bit of fuzziness around the detail there. So there may be like for example, if you were to retail something and take your payment via PayPal, there will be a transaction fee on that. However, for that digital storefront, it is going to be free to have it on Facebook or on Insta. It's going to be absolutely huge. We would probably expect that once you've got that storefront set up, you can create dynamic ads, which will basically be ads that directly retail those items. For anyone that does already have a successful Shopify or Etsy or anything like that, Facebook are going to allow that to be plugged in. So they're creating the ability for your current product listings to be pulled directly through to Facebook, so visible on Facebook, but managed elsewhere. So if you already know a different system, you're not going to have to learn the new Facebook system. You can very, very quickly and easily get that set up. And it's going to be, I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, when I agree, when live video was, came out 2 years ago now, give or take, I said, oh, this is a game changer, but this is an even bigger game changer. Yes, it plays to Facebook logic and business plan of keeping everybody within their environment and ecosystem. So once you are on the Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, I'm not forgetting anybody in the group, platform, please stay here as long as possible, as opposed to clicking the link and leaving. The fact that for now it's free as a setup, the fact that there may be a small transaction fee, but that all platforms do that, so it's not going to be offensive, I don't think. And back to your point earlier, to this day, it remains that Facebook has the best targeting when it comes to advertising. So you could really be smart about it. Now, this is obviously a news from barely not even a week ago. So I managed to find the official press release, and if you don't mind, I thought it would be fun to look at some of the early visuals that they have shared, because there's not a lot of information. There's been an announcement. There's a lot of kind of excitement about it, but there's not much else. So I managed to kind of dig out the official press release, and I thought we could maybe look at the visuals, albeit they are. You were saying it's fuzzy, actually. You can tell that they've rushed it, as in they rushed the announcement, because there's not a great deal there. But this is what they are presenting. A visitor can go and view a shop. You can organize your items in collections. This is a term that they are using, and kind of make life as easy as possible for somebody to add to a cart and buy it. I'd imagine you can then, as you can tell, contact them on Messenger, on WhatsApp, and so on, all integrated. You mentioned a moment ago all the questions you have when you buy something brand new. If this is a trader that you don't know at all, then of course you can get in touch, and I'm sure you can share that with your audience. So that was the one business that they used as a case study. And as you mentioned a moment ago, for the US only for now, but soon to be rolled out, Instagram shop. If you want to use the actual term, would also be part of that. And they're very, very keen to explain that from a customer service point of view, everything will be integrated with, people getting in touch with you on WhatsApp. So then you can share a link to your Facebook store from WhatsApp owned by Facebook, and make life a lot easier. And of course, they can get in touch with you on Messenger as well. And there's all sort of integration because it's from the same machinery. They've even mentioned that they want to try and find a way. So remember, I was saying live is a game changer. Then you said Facebook Shop is an even bigger game changer, which I agree. So they're going to integrate the two. So they're doing a test where somebody could be live, either actually just getting on with whatever the live session is about, but if they are wearing, I would say, sponsored items, so the case here of this lady with this beanie, then right there's a little vignette where you can view more of the product and buy it whilst you're listening to that individual showing that. So I liked the idea of, for example, you could go live on Facebook, talk about maybe a strategy, and then there would be a download available for free. So I could actually download maybe the template or command, or I could book a free consultancy with you. I could book a course and so on and so forth. So I think I know that I work mostly in B2B. I think you have foot on both camps, B2C and B2B, but that's kind of interesting. And then they're extending their thinking and development into what they called the loyalty program. So they are looking into ways to help businesses. You can create, manage, and use a loyalty program. Essentially, buy, earn points becomes credits for the next purchase and so on. I would like to think that they could do that around gifting as well. So if you want to support a local business, which I'm keen to do, I've always been, but even keener now where I live in Weardale, then if I know that someone has a local store, I will kind of push it out to my network, but I could also offer some credits or some gifts. So that's kind of the idea behind it. So yeah, not a great deal of news, but it's enough for you and I to get excited. So let me ask our audience. We've got Austin, Claire number 2, Gary, Helen, Joe, Karen, Lindsay, and Navid. Would you actually add a Facebook store or shop, I think is actually the term they're using right now, as part of your Facebook strategy? Or it could be Instagram, and then keep in touch with your customers via Messenger and WhatsApp. That's kind of interesting. Whether it's B2B or B2C, the chance to actually put your store out, literally, and allow people to understand more about how they can do things. So what is your reaction to this? So whilst you're busy typing into the chat area, I'm going to ask for your reaction, Natalie, about messenger rooms.
Oh, messenger rooms. Well, they're already in action a little bit, but this is the kind of, well, I think it's probably a better idea than the way that Facebook has explained it. So messenger rooms can be the idea that I'm just sat on Facebook, living my best life. Perhaps I'm doing some emails or some work from home, and someone can come and visit me in my room. So essentially they can just sort of like hop in, but digitally, into a dialogue chat with me, and other people can join us in there. It's essentially a bit like basically having a cubicle office with your door open. People can come in, they can network, they can have a little chat. So it could be business colleagues, it could be friends, it could be family. And it's the idea that actually we are all open a little bit more to chatting. I think it's designed to work more seamlessly than Facebook chat feels very formal at the moment to have a Facebook chat going, whereas we might be in sort of like a constant dialogue via text or via Instagram. I know if I certainly look at the platforms that I use to stay in touch with friends and family, that is, we use iMessage, we use WhatsApp, we use Instagram direct messaging, so we can share funny pictures with one another. We don't really go into Facebook messaging. That tends to be with people that I don't know so well. So whether it's a bit of a tool designed to get us all using Facebook Messenger and have that a little bit more integrated. Currently the only Facebook Messenger I've used in the last 24 hours is my dog opener. My dog walker is reopening. So she messaged me on Facebook. If you think about that, she's lovely, we get on well, but I don't actually know her, versus all the other comms that you have through other platforms. I think it's just to create that more informal process and put Facebook Messenger slightly more on the map for informal dialogue.
I mean, I did the test of messenger rooms, and the video and audio quality is far, far superior to, normally you could just tap on, actually you can even do a group call.
Mhm.
So on that respect, from the socializing point of view, I've been using it more often now. So I've got a group with my family, I've got a group with friends, and so on. And I think so I'm always looking at, when they do things like this, all those amazing platforms who will delight and disappoint in equal measures. I was thinking, well, what is the future business application? So for example, with Facebook shops, I'm thinking, okay, that's the version 1, but what is version 3 and 4 and 5 that's coming around the corner? That's exciting. Messenger rooms, I'm thinking, okay, it's a good gimmick. Bear in mind what else is available. But I'm thinking, what is the next iterations where it's going to get perhaps even more user-friendly? It's going to be easier. Are they going to allow recording? Are they going to allow better screen sharing? Are they going to allow using AI auto transcriptions? I know that Google is not a social platform, but they are doing an enormous amount of work on audio and auto translation. So are we in a position, with Facebook Messenger, they have access to the same technology, where I could have a conversation with someone in France, someone in Italy, and in England. People can speak their native language, but actually it gets transcribed or translated automatically, which is available now. It's technology that is available now. You just need to join the dots. So now I was pleased to see messenger rooms, but I thought, well, great. I'm sure there's something better that they were busy working behind the scenes, because I think for all of us, we need to realize that we are kind of guinea pigs as well. They would release something, we give it a go, they learn enormous amount in a process. Sometimes they kill it, or sometimes they go, right, let me show you what we really had in mind, and there's something. So with Facebook shops, that's the name, it's not Facebook store, sorry, Facebook shops. Do you think that they learned an enormous amount from Facebook Marketplace?
Yes, I think so. I think that was marketplace was almost the big thing to happen that completely didn't. So I know we talked a lot about Facebook. There was certain specific industries that they wanted to push, and I think what they probably were able to identify is that drop off point, or that falling down point of, unless it's completion and unless it has better messaging facilities in place. And also the concept that brands and businesses were often quite marginalized on marketplace. So you could, as a business, list your products on marketplace through a direct feed. You couldn't then manually adjust them. So we saw instances where people would call us up and be like, our feed's gone through the website, we put a typo in the price, so we're selling an £18,000 car for £1,800 right now on marketplace. We can't take it down, we're inundated with inquiries. So we saw little marketplace sort of horror stories which it fell down for brands. So I think that was probably quite eye-opening. Through all of that data, as much as we sort of go about our everyday lives and you're on Facebook, you're not really thinking about it. If you think about the mass of users that Facebook has and all these little behavior patterns, so if we stop a conversation at a certain point with a brand, on that mass scale, Facebook can monitor and learn the bits that we don't quite do, the bits that we either don't like, or the bits that just as human behavior we don't really take to them. So I think it's very much kind of looking back, you can see those patterns of marketplace. Was that just testing the water to see, okay, do people actually want to buy anything on Facebook? And then sort of how do we develop that out? I think marketplace will definitely stay, but very much for those sort of things that you might buy. You might want to buy a secondhand bike locally, that type of thing. I think Facebook probably learned very quickly that there is definite scope for brands, but marketplace is not the place for them. Marketplace was like a car boot sale, and if you're bringing your finest offerings to a car boot sale, you might sell bespoke jewelry that is with a hefty price tag, and you're going to put that out alongside someone's £25 used child's bike. It's not quite the right tone.
No, I think for Facebook Marketplace, no, I'm a big fan, but that I'm very biased, because when we moved down south to come to this lovely cottage in Walsingham, I pretty much financed my removal by selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace, because we were moving to a smaller property. So I had to get rid of stuff. With the plan was to actually find a property in France, but I've been stuck at home now for the last 2 months. I can't go. So we were selling stuff, and sometimes we think, well, no one's going to want that, but hey, and within minutes we used to get people interested. So I think they were entering to social trading almost in other territory, and then they move on to something far more commercial. So we're going to take a bit of a pause on the tool. So we've spoken about Twitter and the Facebook ecosystem. Unless there's anything else you want to mention about the Facebook kind of properties, I'm going to ask if there are any questions from our lovely friends today. But whilst Audrius is busy reading the chat box, anything else maybe from the Facebook world?
Some little smaller features. So we're seeing a little bit more of a move towards that copyright protection on Insta as well. A lot of people in lockdown have been doing live DJ sets. Now, if you do that and use copyrighted music, you get 90 seconds, which is probably not that long. But Facebook does have suites of like royalty-free music that you are permitted to use on the platform. So we're seeing a shift towards encouraging people to still be responsible, because there are still things in place like digital music licensing, that as much as lockdown is weird, we do still have to respect that content is created and owned by other people. We're seeing some additional content monetization tools for Insta for creators that play by those rules. So it's almost like a YouTube style. If you get people to watch your video and spend time on the platform, Insta may reward you. At the moment, that's for the absolute elite. It's for the Zoellas amongst us. We may see that rolling down. And certainly one of the things that we talk about when we look at influencers is the rise of the mega influencer, but also for a lot of businesses, those micro influencers that might only have 10,000 followers, but they're very, very niche, and they're the exact type followers that would need your product or service. So we're seeing a lot going on, but a lot of it is often these smaller tool developments of things that are, like you've so rightly referenced, that long-term plan that we get snippets of, we love to speculate on, and we get these tiny little opportunities, and then it kind of develops into something even better for us.
Yeah, smashing. Okay, so just Audrius, do we have any questions or reactions from people today?
Hi guys again.
Hi.
Stuff that you're covering all of this, really interesting. However, we don't have any questions at the moment.
Okay.
I've heard and I've seen that you were, engaging with the audience, but no questions at the moment. I think people are just taking it all in, just absorbing all the information from you guys.
Any reactions to the Facebook shops? Any people are interested? Are they going to look into it?
Yes, we do say, some people have, they do trampolines on Facebook, so they've got a very specific kind of audience for themselves as well. We've got, one second. Claire is saying that she's going to do it next week for her clients as well. So yeah, I mean, people are, I think, aware of this. It's just, maybe if they weren't, they just need to look into this a little bit deeper, get a little bit more information. But it's not really that difficult if they're on Facebook already. I'm pretty sure they can handle this thing. Yeah, I mean, good stuff, but no questions at the moment. So
that's great. No problem at all. Smashing. So thanks again, Audrius. Natalie, can we move on to LinkedIn?
We can, and LinkedIn is probably professionally and for a business the most relevant platform for us at Okoko. So that kind of makes it my favorite one to talk about. So absolutely yes. The only other thing that I love that LinkedIn does not have is stories, because I love Instagram stories. So I was super duper excited this week when it was announced that LinkedIn stories are now being tested in Brazil and the Netherlands. If I could travel right now, I might be tempted to catch a quick flight over to Amsterdam and see if I could trigger stories. But as things stand, I will have to be very patient instead.
So you may not have the answer to this, but on behalf of my audience, I'm sure they think the same. Why Brazil? Why the Netherlands? Are they because people are linked onto the holiday in Brazil and they have mates in Holland? What's that all about?
Well, we tend to see all social platforms will test in countries with small populations, but who have overall typical behavior. So there might be some key trends that we see on LinkedIn in the US, and there might be some key trends that we see in the UK. And let's say there's 5 key trends in each of those countries, but 3 of them overlap. If those 3 key trends are more prevalent in Brazil and the Netherlands, these make these the absolute most effective countries to test in. So they're always looking for small populations so that the beta testing system doesn't become overwhelmed, and typical usage around whatever area they might want to be considering. So I would think typical usage in this instance, to speculate wildly, which is always good fun, will probably be high visit rate, so regularly logging into LinkedIn, and with openness to video, because your stories are very much largely video led. They can be image, but we see far more response for kind of moving image within stories. They're going to be disposable, so like Facebook, like Insta, if you're not using stories yet, they are, well, there's a bit of speculation as to whether they might be 20 seconds on LinkedIn, but we'll see. Even if they're 20 seconds at the moment, they might be slimmed down before they hit a UK market. So let's go with 10 to 20 seconds. So very short clips, stackable. So if you want to talk for 60 seconds, you can create between 3 and 6 of these as you need them, and designed to be disposed of within 24 hours unless you save them. So that means that you can pick any key really prominent stories and have them readily available on your profile, or you can choose to let them go. Now, if you think about LinkedIn and the opportunity there to document and actually form a higher level of content creation on a platform, LinkedIn for me personally, I try to be active on it, so logging in, liking, commenting, engaging, but I don't ever want to post too much, because LinkedIn algorithm, your posts will still cannibalize one another if you are too active in terms of posting. But will this allow an outlet for actually being able to share smaller, more disposable updates that are highly relevant, highly engaging, and get them out to your platforms? It might be something that you think's worth saying on LinkedIn, but it's not going to be worth sticking around for. I mean, you can see content of up to a week, if not more, depending on the engagement rate on it. So if there's something that I want to talk about on a Thursday morning, or if I've got a little bit of time on a Tuesday afternoon and I want to say, hey, I'm going to do a quick Q&A via stories, send me any questions, I might not want to still answer that a week later if it was via a set post. So to have that disposability on a platform that is traditionally quite slow moving is going to add a new added level of dynamism to it, and make that a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more free flowing. And the opportunity, again, I think particularly if you are B2B, where you may struggle to be that creative and have that much brand output, will be massive.
Yeah, absolutely. We should, once it's released, do a special on stories and just literally talk about stories on different platforms and the different tactics of which some people do and so on. Because as those platforms are kind of all settling in, because you said it, they all rip each other off. I didn't say it, you said it. But as it's kind of becoming more, kind of homogeneous, you kind of think, well, now it's more about the platform and the audience, and the real challenge now is about creativity and that presence of mind about what the key messages should be. So we should do something about it. But you mentioned engagement a moment ago. And I know that they've been messing behind the scenes and playing with different ways. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is always looking at engagement, and engagement it's vital, because one of the things that a social platform will measure the success of posts on is how many likes, comments, shares, click-throughs to a website. So all of the stuff that is largely visible, or we can track certainly via Google Analytics at the back end of it. But one of the key metrics for engagement that is almost the super duper invisible engagement is something that we refer to as dwell time, which is a web term, but it also lends itself to social media. So how much time do people actually spend doing something? That could be if you post a really long update on LinkedIn and people read it, and it might take them a minute to read it, 90 seconds to read it, if they want to kind of go back and look at the additional bits. but then they don't like it and then they move on. Now that post is still a fantastically valuable post from a LinkedIn content perspective. And if you think about the types of things that you might look at on LinkedIn but not necessarily like, particularly at the moment, there might be content that adds huge value. Let's say you've got all of your team furloughed and your business is kind of going on, but you wouldn't necessarily want to give that information to a customer. You're keeping that kind of behind wraps. If you then saw an article about furloughing and managing staff through furlough, that might actually add huge value to you as an individual. You might get huge benefit from it, but you might, and read that in great detail, reread it, but you might not like it, because to like it is to give it indication that that is there. If, for example, you're having to look at taking out a bit of added funding at the moment, it might be the same. That article or kind of link might provide huge value to you, but you don't want to visibly engage it. So we're seeing actually LinkedIn reward dwell time and start to build that into other options. Now, one of the features that we've seen is around new reactions. So you're going to be able to go beyond our set LinkedIn reaction, which are like, curious, love, and they're a bit cringy, to be honest. I don't think I've ever used the curious. I've had a few loves for things that I really think are the absolute pinnacle of marketing genius on there. Definitely more than the few insightfuls, but it is still a very limited library. And
it's almost like going to a very bad acting class, isn't it?
Yes.
You change your position in kind of, to express different emotions. But I know what you mean, because sometimes I'm like, well, it's not how I feel really. So I'll settle on that one. Like celebrate, I think I use a lot to kind of express thank that someone's put the work into it. But yeah, you're right. It's very limited, which is perhaps why, going back to your earlier comment, the GIF are so popular, because actually you could find something that kind of matches closer the nuance of your mood and feelings, and obviously make the other person smile. Because I think for me there was two forces at work here. There was one, the fact that we knew for a fact that people will like, comment, and share less because of the sheer abundance of content to begin with. There's some, so if I did that all day long, I have nothing else. But also the novelty had worn off. It's not as exciting to like, comment, and share as it used to be in the early days. And quite simply, sometimes I'm just very happy with the content, but I just want to move on with my day and not react. And I think I welcome that, because I know that Facebook has used dwell time, used a different phrase, used for a while now, which is why when I get involved with video, as you know, I would say, you need to find a video that makes people stay. Because that dwell time is recorded and is therefore a kind of indication that the viewer or the reader, in the case of LinkedIn at the moment as well, is interested in what you have to say. The algorithm behind this is going to go, right, let's show more of Natalie's content to Pascal, because he seems to stick around even though he didn't like, comment, and share. Which I think is perhaps a fairer way to go about it. I hope that people are going to go the other way, though, and start to do things like kind of clickbaity and be populist, but we shall see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we, with great tools come great responsibility, and I'm sure we'll all be using them very well in some cases and very badly in other cases. Okay,
so let us know again your thoughts and reaction to LinkedIn stories. Would you use them? And if so, what might you share as LinkedIn story? And feel free to ask questions as well. The dwell time, do you think it's fairer to make sure that people don't have to like, comment, and share to indicate that they value your content? Other bits and bobs that I picked up from LinkedIn, Natalie, understandably, because of what you mentioned earlier with Facebook, they are putting a bit more marketing effort behind LinkedIn groups. Now, I have to say, I got a bit burnt out when they first came out. It was just, it wasn't very good at all. I should give it another go. I should be fairer to LinkedIn and maybe join a few other groups. I've kind of moved away because it was just not particularly helpful for me. I will actually share for all of you in the chat box, there's a link to a ebook of sort that LinkedIn's pulled together about how to manage groups successfully. You will be aware of my interest in video marketing.
Just a little bit. I've heard rumors.
I know you do share, that interest in video. So LinkedIn behind the scenes are trialing video introductions for job seekers. So this is how this would work. Somebody sees a job advert, they can, for now, they can apply and essentially put either a link to their LinkedIn profile or add a CV. But in future, they can add a short video to essentially introduce themselves and explain why they believe they are right for the position. And then parallel to that, LinkedIn is also allowed for people to pre-record a video, and before they publish it, get that video to be essentially checked by what they called an AI-powered feedback system. AI-powered feedback system. If that's not Skynet, I don't know what it is. But so what it means is that because they've got decades and decades of data about what makes a good answer or good introduction, they can give you some feedback on posture, on tone of voice, on some of those what I call crutch words, which I'm still guilty sometimes of using, and then you can refine until you're ready to kind of publish that video intro. But what I'm like, I'm thinking, okay, that's interesting. However, the large majority of LinkedIn users don't look for a job; they look for clients and build a network. So I'm thinking, so could you potentially actually have a video intro on the company page in future? Could that actually be what LinkedIn stories look like when you say hi to people? Is it possible that in future I can click on your image, thumbnail image on LinkedIn, and access a very short intro about who you are, what you do, and who you help? That's kind of things that I'm looking at. But I thought it was interesting that they are introducing this. Very much the angle they're using is we're going to do what we can during this crisis to help you find the right, obviously, employees before you to find the right employer and play the go-between, which is always a tension with LinkedIn, because I always feel that it's the soon to become the best social media platform, but it's always kind of a few steps removed from that glory moment. Would you believe? I mean, I think that LinkedIn is by far the best social media platform to be used in business, but it's lacking stuff. And one thing that is lacking at the moment is allowing access to some of the features you and I can talk about to a much broader audience. At the moment, they still ask you to apply for live video and apply for the e-newsletter features. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, because if they made it mass available to all, I can understand that they want to remove the element of people just try it out. If you just try it out, a lot of poor quality content is generated. A lot of my pet peeve is people that test things with the word test. So it could be a LinkedIn live that is literally someone going test, or a tweet that says test. Just try and do one, short one, and that will be the test. So I absolutely kind of get that LinkedIn is trying to make sure, as just a slight barrier to entry, that there's, you've got to step up and kind of opt into it. I do kind of get that from preventing like mass usage and mass poor quality content being generated. I get that they've got to try and protect that on the platform. I personally don't really like the sort of weighting system. I think I'm old enough to remember Google Plus launching, and I think the weighting system is what killed that, because it was dead in the water before it started. And the idea that all these people were super excited to get on the platform, and you couldn't get on the platform if you knew someone that was on the platform, they could invite you. That never worked. So even when you were on, you were just inundated, and you spent most of your time actually stressing whether you could get on the platform, whether you could use it. And by the time you got it, you didn't actually even want it anymore. So the fact that the feature is there, but you, if I had an opportunity this afternoon and thought, you know what, I've got an hour, I'm going to create some content for this. I don't have the feature yet. I'm still on the waiting list for kind of LinkedIn Live, but I see poor quality lives going out on my platform. So some of those within my network have them, and I think it's almost worse than the huge influx of poor quality content. Is some poor quality content, some good quality content, but lots of content creators unable to access it. So I don't really like that it's not readily accessible.
Yeah.
a lot of people will wait for it because they'll assume they're going to get it. They won't realize that it's opt-in, and that makes it all the more painful as well.
Well, just to give you a bit of context, I've applied 4 times now for a live video, because each time one of my acquaintances gets it, and there doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason for it, and each time I kind of apply. Now, you could argue my application maybe is rubbish. Maybe I don't know how to apply for it, but, it seems a bit mean, particularly when they ask you, are you already active doing video and that kind of things. And then the other one that I discovered by accident was the e-newsletter. So many of you will know that you can write articles. In addition to the post on LinkedIn, you can write articles. But I didn't know that there was also something called the LinkedIn e-newsletter. That looks stunning, by the way. Looks really, really good. And would be great to have, even if you already use an email system, you could simply copy and paste, put it on LinkedIn, and then share it out to your network. But you've got to apply for that. And it feels very elitist after a while, particularly when we wait as long as we have. So I'm saying I'm going to write a letter. I reached that age. I reached that age where you complain. So to whom, dear Mr. LinkedIn, I'm going to write it because it just starts to get a bit frustrating. However, jesting apart, to you, our lovely audience, would you use LinkedIn Stories? Would you go live on LinkedIn once it's released? Would you actually like the idea of publishing an e-newsletter to your audience on LinkedIn? I think I'd be quite keen to know that as well. Whilst people are busy kind of giving us their reaction to LinkedIn, can we have maybe a bit of a kind of wrap up around the other names and brands that are kind of part of the world of social media, but perhaps don't always make the headlines?
Yeah, so we've seen a little bit over the last couple of weeks with Pinterest basically releasing some stats and kind of trying to engage its platform. It's definitely a platform that during lockdown has seen an evolution in the way that it is used and a shift in the types of things that people are looking for. So all the things that we suddenly need that we didn't necessarily need before, like a huge wealth of homeschooling resources, for example. We are seeing a lot of people look to Pinterest to discover that content. And Pinterest it's an interesting platform, and we do a little bit of work at Okoko with Pinterest, and they very much encourage agencies to see it as a tool for reaching audiences that know they need something but haven't made their mind up on exactly what yet. So it becomes a slightly different playing field, but we have seen surge in Pinterest use, shift in the types of things that people are looking for. So anything around things that we might need, I've been working so hard to avoid the phrase, but I'm going to throw it in here. Have a think about what we need in the new normal, and kind of, if you have business elements that lend itself to that, chances are people are searching for it, and chances are they're searching for it on Google, which would be an SEO issue, which is slow to win that race. What there might be some quick fixes on Pinterest. Particularly, you are able to look at Pinterest advertising opportunities now on the platform, which have rolled out to smaller businesses. So Pinterest worth consideration if you provide something that is fundamental to the way in which we're living right now.
Yeah. Now, I know that you shared with me that you were invited to actually a presentation from Pinterest themselves. You very kindly shared with me the ebook that they sent you. So I hope you don't mind, but I captured some of the key messages. I wouldn't mind your reaction.
Yeah.
I know that you were there live. I read it afterwards, but if you don't mind, just give me a reaction to some of what captured my attention, really. So to begin with, as I mentioned a moment ago, Pinterest doesn't make the headlines. It doesn't go like kind of figurehead the way Facebook might, or LinkedIn or whatever. And they kind of get on doing an amazing job for their community. But those numbers are quite something.
They really are, and it is one of those ones, just to pick up on what you've said, Pinterest don't get as much coverage, and probably not as much as they deserve, because they do put on fantastic events and facilities now digitally, but prior to this, real life hosted, where they'll actually fly in top kind of heads of certain departments to give insight to brands that use it, and a lot of case studies. So they're very much, as a network is concerned, I know a lot of us will look at the network and think, well, I just run a small business, they don't actually care about the stuff that we do. They're actually far more open than other networks, perhaps. So if we look at the level of activity on Pinterest, it is at an all-time high right now. And I'll run you through the stats on the right hand side. So the level of saves now, to save something on Pinterest is to pin it. So you save it for future use. You want to come back to it, is up 30%. So we're seeing 30% more year on year. So based against the statistics from May last year, we're seeing that level of usage, which we would class as high level engagement on the platform. Bear in mind, on Pinterest, you can't comment, you can't discuss. Basically, the only options you've got is to create and to save. You've got that option there. So searches up 60%. We are seeing phenomenally high levels of people looking for stuff on Pinterest. And if that was a Google statistic, we would all be racing over to Google immediately going, there's more searches. But if you look at Pinterest, it's an easy opportunity to capitalize on, and the search evidence and the rising usage is there. And then we've got finally the creation of new boards. So to create a board on Pinterest is a little bit like an old school mood board. So you create something that is of a theme. You can pin products, you can pin ideas, you can pin recipes, you can pin literally anything to that. It can be a mix of your own products or other people's products. So you'll have some individuals that are thinking about repainting their living room, for example, pinning different design ideas. You'll have some brands that offer paint online, pinning different design elements and things that they can talk about. So it works both ways, but we're seeing a 45% increase in the number of new boards created year on year. Now, we would typically expect rising usage year on year for Pinterest anyway, but this is phenomenally high surges in uses we're talking about just here. And yeah, it's one of those networks we don't really talk about because they often don't have that much new development in terms of offering new features, but the features that they've got are working and in demand.
What I like about Pinterest as well is that it's got a level of clarity about who they are targeting and who they're meant to serve. And Pinterest really is squarely into B2C territory. There's been some tactics used by B2B, but I would say it's exactly, it knows exactly what it's supposed to do and it does it well. It adds, video upload, it will add some element of e-commerce and so on. And like I said, I feel sometimes we spend so much time talking about Facebook and the others and so on because they are always changing, because they're making the headlines sometimes for good and bad reasons. But I wanted to give that one. If I could choose a reaction from LinkedIn, it'll be the heart one. So I think for me, what was interesting about the report you sent, that it was obviously recent because it was making reference to what we are all going through at this moment in time globally, and that again it was a destination for positivity and people finding ways to connect. But the next slide I'm going to show you is probably what you found most interesting when you went to the live session, is around the emerging consumer behaviors. And I'd be very interested to see whether there's something we could learn from Pinterest that has a bearing in the other platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. So they talked about that basically traditionally Pinterest is used to discover and research, and often quite very specifically. So if you are planning a wedding, that is a start and an end point. If you are redecorating, there's a point where you start thinking about that, and then there's a point where you've finished redecorating. So they talked about traditionally Pinterest being quite project based, and it's something that is very much you begin and you end and you feel that completeness. Now outside of that completeness, they talked about basically and linked it to sort of hierarchy of needs as how we've seen these stages work. So these 4 emerging consumer behaviors basically start at the bottom and we step up as we go through. what's really important to remember with your own customers, consumers, and clients is that we are all, at the end of the day, individuals, and we are all on our slightly different time scale as to how we pass through these stages. You can see it in people's reaction. So certainly if you observe behavior at a local supermarket, you have some people that would appear to be more conservative at the moment than other people in their behavior and how they're just generally feeling about things. So Pinterest discussed this as the first stage of kind of that going into lockdown and the world changing is the triage and information stage. So that you need to discover, it suddenly puts into your world all of these things that you didn't necessarily know about. And this was me with the screens. So as much as we talk about this as the first stage can occur anywhere. You suddenly need to categorize and place and level the importance of all these things that you've got going on, which is typically a little bit more than you might normally have, and get some key information on this. So we're coming to Pinterest to discover our fundamental needs as consumers have shifted towards a world that's different, and therefore we know less about it. So we need that information. We are looking for help with those. What we're also then looking for the next step is empathy and relevance. So what brands are speaking our language? Who's putting out that content that helps us? We need information. We are going to look and browse. The brands that answering the questions that we have are the brands that we're going to gravitate towards. So there's significant opportunity there. Also brands that are talking to us in a way that is relevant to us right now. So we've seen a little bit of backlash in terms of people don't want to be told how to feel. They just want to know that the brand is there and with them, and that everyone's trying their best. And that level of sort of humanity, and we are humans and you are humans, and that acknowledgement is working a very, very long way. Now from that, once we have the information that we need, so we feel more settled in ourselves, we feel like brands are speaking our language, and we're feeling just a little bit more comfortable about the world. So those first two steps are very much about making us sort of just feel all right. If you think about that in terms of a hierarchy of needs, it's to sort of get us back to the point where we're on an equilibrium level. So we're kind of okay. Now, once we get to the point where we're feeling okay about what we're kind of going through, it gives us a little bit more space to start to think about how we could make that better. So we start to look for positivity around us and escapism. So if your holiday's been cancelled, are we going to look for optimism? What can you do to have a really good barbecue at home this weekend to make the most of it? And escapism, are we going to plan some travels for next year? We can't go right now, we can't go exploring, but what can we do when we get to it? So little things that are going to distract and inspire are working very, very well on social media. If we look at this in terms of going into lockdown and being maybe about a week into lockdown and look at other platforms, we had word searches doing well on Facebook. If I'd pitched a word search to a client in February, we would have probably lost that contract for how irrelevant we were in terms of tone. But actually giving people something that just takes their mind off something else and gives them space to do something and feel good about themselves right now is massively valuable. And then you've got the recovery and rebound. So recovery and rebound is very, very much at the purchase stage. So once we've gone through that stage cycle of, I'm not sure what I'm meant to be doing. Okay, I feel a little bit about everything. Or maybe I could do this. Okay, I'm going to invest in this. It's ultimately that mentality. Now, how each individual customer will get through that will vary. We will have had people that have gone through that process in less than a day. They've immediately adjusted and they're like, right, I'm feeling good about everything. We'll have some people within our customer bases who aren't quite there yet, but who are going to get there. But what's important is just acknowledging that we probably do still have people at each stage right now. And can we help put out the content that's going to be really relevant, help them, engage them, and ultimately get them on board, if not as a purchasing customer right now, just as a loyal fan for the long term.
Thank you so much. I'm sure it must have been a fantastic presentation from Pinterest, and very nice for you to be invited as well. I personally, I'm primarily operating B2B environment, but I'm going to go back to those 4 stages and try and extrapolate and almost, come up with my own versions, because certainly it seems a very sensible journey, and it's a different language, that I'm used to as well. So he's invited me to reflect on that. So one of the reasons we do that for you, our audience, we will always go B2C, B2B, and kind of go back and forth, because I firmly believe you can learn lessons from both sides of that kind of customer engagement. Before we wrap up this segment and perhaps take reactions, comments, and questions from our friends here today, a couple of things I wanted to mention to you to kind of add to that. One is we're still waiting patiently for Google Maps to become a social network. Some of you may know, but in 2018, Google, during their annual conference that they had to cancel this year, like many others, announced that they were making progress in turning Google Maps into a social network, a real one, to compete. So I think that was almost like coincided with the death of Google Plus. Certainly in Europe, and so Google Maps still not happening 2 years on, so I'm not sure what they're waiting, but it will happen. So bit of advice, please do nurture your entry on Google Maps. Get into that Google My Business account and see what you can do with it, because that is in preparation of a social network. So it's the reverse. Imagine that you could have had Facebook pages before individuals could have their own Facebook profile. That's almost the kind of go about it. And YouTube still trying to be recognized as a social network. But I will say it's a bit like my school report when I was a bit younger, Natalie. My parents used to have to read, could do better. And I think with YouTube is that as a social network, could do better. Not quite there yet. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's hard for YouTube because it seems keen to pivot, but actually very slow in pivoting. So a lot of its features don't really lend itself. It's still very much the broadcast tool. You know, I know certainly if YouTube goes on in my house, we will screencast it to the TV, so we'll watch it on the TV, and it's perceived as a TV style activity. And I think to break that mentality and actually have it as something where there's more engagement, it will take a little bit longer. I think we need to have almost a different type of content to facilitate a different type of use.
Now, for me, YouTube remains a fantastic hosting platform. I mean, it's free to be able to then embed onto your website. So I think for me, actually, it probably is more likely to remain an amazing form of blogging environment, video blogging, than a social network. But time will tell. So before we move on to segment 2, which is where we give you our recommendations and I may say maybe some homework for you to kind of consider. Do you have any questions for us today? Do you have any comments? I'm just going to open the chat box and see what we've had some reaction. Audrius, if you have questions that even came to you on behalf of the audience, feel free to jump in. So I've got Gary Walker saying, yes, LinkedIn, so that's probably earlier, is our best performing media channel in terms of number of inquiries. Well done. We tend to use it for showcasing and confidence building. Stories would work well for us. So a reaction to LinkedIn stories. I wonder, Gary, would you then consider going live, doing some live Q&As, even some news roundup in within your specialism? There's a fun one. I hope Joe won't mind. So Joe Martins wrote, I would try LinkedIn stores and live. No, stories, not stores. And that said, well, it would be great to have LinkedIn stores. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? That'd be good. Lindsay saying that LinkedIn Live and stories could be useful for us. Some reaction. So, that's nice. And I think there was a reaction from Lindsay earlier around Facebook stores saying, don't think would be relevant for us at this moment. We are looking to sell our software on our website in the future. Could be looked into in more details. I think that's fair. As B2B, you've got to take the view of how you might do it. I think for me, just caught a few days later, I would probably use it to promote the training sessions, the free downloads, if I can. Some kind of free consultancy and so on. But I think because what I do, very much like Gary and a few others, is quite bespoke. I have to meet the client and understand their needs and put together a proposal. A bit more maybe packages of offers. What has been interesting for me to note, certainly as a business, as you know, historically I've used Facebook for my private life. The same with Instagram, but what I'm seeing is more and more my clients are active on Facebook. So as you know, without much fanfare announcement, I switched this Monday to making Facebook more work-like. So, and I warn my family and friends and say, you're going to get so bored of me talking about digital marketing, but hey, I've got a business to run. So, we can meet each other on Messenger. Gary replied, so thanks very much, Gary. Yes, we would consider going live. Our production site is very animated, which will work well for live content and films and jobs. So can't wait to see what form of animation going on in that production site. But yeah, I think Gary's right. Those behind the scenes and kind of what I say, when I do the video marketing session, talk about let them in, give them an insight into your world. Now, for many of us, it's tricky. My world is very limited to a spare bedroom at the moment. But when I'm out and about, typically I would share more. But yeah, I mean, can you imagine I think people would find it really interesting, the before, I call it the before stage of what people see in the end. So that's smashing. Okay, we'll keep those comments and questions going, but we're going to move on to segment number 2. And I'm going to start with the article of the month, which I'll put in the chat box as well. Now, Natalie, do you like stats and data?
I do. I think too often, social media is smoke and mirrors and feelings, and I do love a good stat just to drill home what we should be doing.
So do you like good infographics and the likes?
I love, the joke is on me a little bit, because as much as I love a stat, numbers are not my forte. I am the running joke of numbers in my office under usual circumstances. So if it can be visual, that really does help massively.
Okay, well, I've got 1 out of 2. I've got some good stats, but not very good visuals. And that's been very mean. But so every year, as you may remember, a company called Sprout Social, this enterprise solution for social media listening, publishing, and tracking. So there's their index. Now, word of caution, this is primarily US insight, and it's very much B2C. So again, I like to know a bit more, and I just see whether or not it correlates with my world of B2B. But what they do every year, they contact their clients. They said about 1,000 plus marketers. They also contact 1,000 what they call consumers. Those are going to be accessing those social media platforms, and they ask questions. And every year they do this investigation where what they ask really is how the marketers and the consumers are using social media, what their intentions and kind of goals are, and whether there is a mismatch or a match between the two kind of forces. Now you know where this is going, but I think it's a very, very good reminder. So I've taken just snapshots of the report, but if you guys are interested, if you just Google social Sprout Social Index 2020, there'll be a sign-up page and you can download the document for yourself. But you just want the headlines. This is pretty much what they shared, and I look forward to your reaction, Natalie. So marketers' primary goals for social media. So number 1, increase brand awareness. And then you can read the rest. But I want to point your attention to 2 things. Drive sales 40%. Now, the reason why I wanted to mention that to you, Natalie, is because this figure used to be bigger 2-3 years ago. And I think there's a nice adjustment of ambitions, expectations to say, really be careful. The world of social media is not billboarding and, who wants one. The other figure I wanted to mention to you was 28% provide customer service and support.
Yeah.
If I was to show you the version from the consumers, what do you think the figure would be for provide customer service and support?
Well, I mean, let's go double. Let's go double and go. We'll double and round up. Let's go 60%.
Yeah, you're pretty close. So there's a mismatch already, which I think is interesting because it's been mentioned certainly by me in previous social media news roundup. I think that very, very soon, and I mean potentially the pandemic may have accelerated that, there's going to be a clear divide between companies, people like you and I and our audience today, who use social media for customer service only, and then those who use it for sales and lead generation. I think it's going to be a much clearer divide. And I think we need to be very careful because actually, by and large, most people will expect you to use it for good customer service and actually as a platform to showcase that quality of being present and being very, very caring. All right. So, like I said, interesting stats, not very nice graphs approaches. So the next one which I wanted to share with you is back to this mismatch. So the line chart on the left is a little busy. But if you take a moment to look at it, in red, essentially the plans in terms of using it more in 2020, marketers, and then in pink or fuchsia, I'm told, are the consumers. Where there is a mismatch, so I took the view of if there's more than 5%, either way, there's a mismatch. If you start with Instagram, marketers are planning to use it more, 68%, and consumers more, 50%. That there could be, again, a slight strain. Could it be that essentially Instagram has reached is kind of nice level, it's going to plateau, so it makes sense that maybe there's going to be less consumers using it more because the volume is quite great and brands are playing catch up? I don't know, but I think it's interesting. Look at Twitter. Marketers planning to use Twitter, 53% said yes. Consumers, 30% have said yes. So there's a mismatch there. LinkedIn has got the greatest mismatch, but I think it's fair because this is a B2C kind of exercise and investigation. I would expect someone who is in a business of buying consumer brands to go, no, I'm going to be using LinkedIn more. Question mark. Where I think it's more interesting for today's conversation is if you look at YouTube, Messenger, Pinterest, and WhatsApp. Consumers in the US, I grant you, are saying they're going to use it more, and that figure is greater than the marketers say they're going to use it more. So YouTube, Messenger, Pinterest, and WhatsApp could be actually environments which are perhaps not as busy with marketers who, as someone you know said, spoil everything. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of get your reaction around the mismatch. One hand, Instagram, Twitter, are we going to get too busy with marketers in there? And then YouTube, Messenger, and Pinterest, and WhatsApp, is it still up for grabs really for brands and small businesses?
Well, you could argue with Instagram that there is a little bit of space for brands to catch up. But I think we are probably dangerously approaching a situation where brands that actually don't need to be on Instagram are then doubling down too much on Instagram. As a sort of core question, I always if they are, we need to be there so we can speak to them. If not, then perhaps it just becomes a nice to have. So I think there's probably a little bit of slack there, but not as much as indicated by this particular kind of graph. For Twitter, yeah, I think it's interesting to see marketers spotting it as more of an opportunity. I know Twitter, certainly within the last 12 months, have put in slightly more advertising opportunities, but I don't think, again, that justifies the level of disproportion there. The new ad opportunities tend to be around events and event targeting, and that's probably too big. It's, in fact, certainly given 2020 as it's played out so far, that's massively too big. And LinkedIn, I would definitely agree within a sort of marketing sector. And I think certainly as a marketer, we always feel like we're probably personally not using LinkedIn enough for ourselves and our businesses. So I think that might be skewing that metric a little bit. YouTube, interesting to see, because while it would indicate there's more of an opportunity, I don't feel necessarily that there's that much opportunity for brands at the moment. So one to watch, but I think to get that working, it would need new features. Messenger, huge. Now, Messenger and WhatsApp, they're your opportunity moments here, alongside Pinterest. So Messenger, we can currently run ads on Facebook to target Messenger only. So all you would simply do is in your Facebook ad setup, it allows you to select from the suite of Facebook family products. You can have ads running specifically for Messenger. Now, if you were to run ads that look and feel very native to Messenger, so they might not run on wider Facebook or Instagram, that is probably a key opportunity area to be building in. Pinterest, definitely. I mean, this will have been prior to the data sort of just released from Pinterest. So arguably, as much as we had that intention, that's gone up even more. Pinterest do offer a range of advertising opportunities well worth considering. It will depend on your exact setup. If you are e-commerce enabled, you're going to have a significant advantage when it comes to Pinterest. So have that at least as something that potentially is worth exploring. And WhatsApp is the only fly in the ointment, because as things currently stand, we can't advertise on WhatsApp. So it's not a silver bullet opportunity where we can go, boom, let's put some budget and we'll fix it, like we can in theory with all of the platforms. But does that mean you need to be considering business for WhatsApp business solutions, because it could be that your customers are there and ready to talk to you, but you're not quite showing up to the party yet.
Now, I want to explore more the WhatsApp, and I think there's some people that we could invite to tell us about their stories. Now, in interest of time, I'm going to go straight into this one. So this was a report which I think is interesting. Again, B2C and kind of US sensitivities, but the types of content consumer want to engage with. What is fascinating is that for as long as I can remember seeing reports like this, images still number one. Now, I know that I'm a huge fan of video. People have been kind enough to support many of the video sessions I've done and webinars on video marketing, but images still number one. Now, not all images, clearly you have to think it through and make it work for your audience, but I think it's down to because it can be consumed fast. Number two, videos, 50%, of course, takes a bit longer. You have to commit to watching the comments and so on, but it's kind of nice. I see examples of that time and time again, that text-based posts, people are kind of okay with them, but I think it's because of the very nature, and then stories there. And then the rest, you guys can see for yourselves. So I think it's back to reflecting on your audience, the platform that obviously they favor, your own activities to be relevant, and maybe emulate some of those steps that we saw from the Pinterest report. But I would say, yeah, look, images, videos, text-based, and stories, there's a kind of the dead certs, and then the rest are additional extras where you can surprise people with the poll, the live video, the GIF, and so on, to kind of retain that relevancy. So I thought that would be interesting for you to, because it will concur, I'm sure, the work that you do with your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting to see the spread. It really is. And but no surprise that image is king, because you can just absorb it so much quicker. But yeah, it's where the value is, which will be in the video, into the text-based post, where you can actually add more value into that messaging. But yeah, a lot of audiences will just want a quick glance at something and feel that they've absorbed a brand message.
Okay, right. Let me just bring us back on screen, and still part of segment 2. So this was article of the month, which I'll publish in a moment on the chat box. But I want to ask you for your strategy of the month, as we always do as part of the news roundup.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's something that we've covered throughout the webinar up until now. But to put it into a key phrase, my strategic kind of suggestion is going to be present. So right now, just think about being superhuman, super relevant, and reacting in real time. If you talk to us in January, we're talking about, you need to tell a narrative, you need to have good control of your brand story and where it's going. Right now, unfortunately, the narrative is bigger than all of us and all of our companies. And even if you're Coca-Cola or Disney right now, the narrative is bigger than you. So just focus on telling the best possible story that we can tell in real time. So think about those 4 Pinterest stages. Be mindful of where your customers might be at. Focus on being a good human and a good digital citizen, and the opportunities are there. They'll fall into place. So just to summarize it, be present. Don't worry about 10 social media posts time. Just worry about getting that exact messaging right today that's going to deliver that ultimate value for your customers and for your business long term.
Yeah, I mean, I know you shared with me a few days ago that even with your work with your clients and mine, we've tried to kind of back off, the planning stage, because in a way, people have got so much capacity. You know, they're dealing with so much at this moment in time, or I mean, the professionals that I'm helping. And I said to them, just have a line of sight for the next week or 2 weeks. Don't, we will get back to one day planning months, 3 months, 6 months in advance. But right now, you want to be kind to yourself, but be able to, you know, adapt very, very quickly. Yeah. What would be your social media app of the month?
Well, to fuel that idea of being a little bit more human, a little bit more present, I would highly recommend considering getting a relevant app on your phone for whatever social media management software you use. And the one that we use and recommend in the office is Hootsuite. So we're going with Hootsuite, but this could be your own version of whatever scheduling system that you happen to use. And make sure that you've got it installed on your mobile device, and make sure you've got notifications turned on. Now that will allow you to be more dynamic. It also means that if you are scheduling, let's go not 10, but let's go a couple of posts in advance, and something happens where you want to change the wording, you want to push back, it just gives you that agile flexibility. If you're out walking the dog and you think, you know what, actually, I want to put that in there, it means that it's in the palm of your hand. You can access any scheduled platform on any network. You can change everything very, very quickly, and it will just give you that added bit of flexibility with all of your messaging. It means that if there's a sudden announcement and you think, wow, okay, we weren't expecting that announcement, and now my post is going to get caught up in that Twitter announcement look at 6:30 tonight when it goes out, you can just hop on, switch it over, and get that into a slightly better slot. So just being really, really present and really, really mindful of what am I saying right now and what's the whole world saying around me, and does that match? If it doesn't, just move it and you'll be absolutely fine. Just give yourself that flexibility. And like you said, Pascal, be kind to yourself. Don't be, well, I have to get that marketing message out today, then it doesn't land well, and then you're annoyed because you've almost wasted that bit of content on its first kind of push. So yeah, just be really kind and do what you can with what you've got in front of you today. And what will help you do that is a good app.
Absolutely. And as a reminder, I know it's stating the obvious to our audience, both live and on replay, but just do the networking bit as well. By all means, add value and publish your stuff. But if, like many of us, you know, you're kind of limited in terms of where you can go, and as a result of which you spend longer online, network, comment, ask questions, you know, and user time, because it will go away again, and then we'll be back to time limitations. Thank you very much. Let me then close segment 2 with my content creation app of the month, which will be video related, which will not surprise you.
Not at all.
So, you know, I've been on this quest to find a way to caption, to put subtitles on videos in an easy way. Now, there are some apps out there, primarily on the iPhone, and I'm very jealous because I have an Android system. Do you have an iPhone?
iPhone, yeah.
You do, yeah. So you have apps like Clips and a few others, and there's been a few out there. But I came across this great app called Get, as in the verb getting, Get Subly, SUBLY.com, GetSubly.com. Not only are they based in the UK, to my understanding, so that's nice. So what they allow you to do, it works much, much better on the laptop, granted, is you could record a short video. You can then upload it on Get Subly. And thank you very much, Audrius, to put the URL. And you can choose which language is being spoken. Now, imagine this. So right now, I've been doing this new video series called Confinement Stories. I know you came across it. And on a couple of occasions, I've been in conversation with French people. And Get Subly has a long list of international languages. So it doesn't do the subtitling just in English, does it in French, in German, and they have some beta versions as well on other languages. Now, it uses AI, so there will be some errors, as is the case with many apps, but you can go into the editor and then correct, you know, the older words because pronunciation was slightly off or the sound quality, you know, was a little poorer. And I've done a test with a 1-minute video and with a 1-hour interview, and it's working fine. Now, when it's you can choose the typeface, the size, the location of the subtitle, and when it's finished, you save and download, and end up with a file where the subtitles are burnt, if you will, on the video. But you also can download what's called the SRT file, which stands for something that escapes me right now. 3 letters, SRT, probably subtitles, something, a text, which you can also then use for maybe uploading the video on YouTube, and you can upload that SRT file for the subtitles to come up and so on. So actually, there are many options out there for someone like me who's an Android user and record videos like through Zoom or through other platforms and so on. It's been actually a great find, and at this moment in time still remains free as they want to build their kind of loyal base of users. So getsubly.com, give it a go, because particularly for social media videos, we do know the stats are very clear that if there are subtitles, you get just a bit more engagement on that. So there it is, my content creation tool of the month.
Awesome. I'm definitely going to give that a go, because we are always searching for good subtitling software. So I've definitely learned something. Thank you, Pascal.
Not at all. So let me then wrap up the social media news roundup for May 2020. A big thank you for our audience live and on replay. It's really quite special to have been invited by Digital Drive and Digital Knowledge Exchange as part of the UMI team to kind of do this in your company. As was mentioned some time ago, this is our 3-year birthday. We've been doing this with our colleague Leon Howe from the DCI for the last 3 years, and it just feels nice to kind of upgrade it and get this message out there. If you've enjoyed the video, this will be of course available on replay on the respective program's YouTube channel. Do share it with your contacts if you think that they can benefit from that. And until next month, or we'll be back for more reviews, rants and raves, go out there and be sociable. Bye-bye for now.